Okay, everybody, welcome to the Early Onset Chapter meeting. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Roets. I live in Tucson, Arizona. I have a 16-year-old son who has early onset FSHD. His name is Sam. He was diagnosed when he was 6 years old. He is non-ambulatory right now. He was in a wheelchair probably about 12, he started using a wheelchair full time. So that's just a little background on me. I want to welcome everybody. Thank you so much for attending. I know it's hard with close to Christmas and our schedules are packed. Also, just the time change and the time zones sometimes make it difficult for us all to come together. That's why we're going to record this meeting, and then people can watch it at their leisure later on. And I'd like to for people to introduce themselves. Before we start off, before I get into the meat of what I want to say, just, if you feel comfortable, just let us know your name, where you're from. If you have a child with FSHD, maybe a little bit of background, like I just did on Sam, kind of how old they are, at what age they were diagnosed. Or if you're here with the FSHD Society, some people may not know you, and I know we have someone from Fulcrum here. So June, do you want to start?
Sure. I'm June Kaneshita. I am with the FSHD Society, Director of Research and Patient Engagement. And I have a particular interest in early onset and pediatric issues, as some of the other people like Jen know. And so I've been having a lot of conversations with Allie. What can we do to have a meaningful impact in this?
Okay, thank you. Lee, you want to go? You just froze up there for a minute, June.
Sure. So my name is Lee Reynolds. I am the Chief Program Strategist with the FSHD Society. So I sort of help us ensure that we're all rowing in the same direction and we're maximizing all of our efforts, as well as I'm involved with the marketing and communications and how we speak to and engage all of our patients. So part of that is also working with some of our chapters, and I'm very lucky that one of them is Allie and the Early Onset Chapter. It's something she and I started talking about a while ago, and we have really great plans for next year. And I'm just very excited that we are going to have this opportunity for our early onset families to just connect and learn from each other and support each other. So thanks for letting me be here. And as always, I just want to thank Allie for saying yes and putting her hand up and agreeing to lead it. I know June had been hoping and wishing for something like this for quite a while, and it takes somebody like Allie to jump in and say, yeah, I'll head that up, to get it done. So huge props to her for being willing to take the lead role here.
Okay, thank you, Lee. Jen, you want to go next?
Sure. Jen Mcnary. Nice to see some faces, some familiar and some new. I am the head of patient advocacy and engagement at Fulcrum, and we're here just to listen and learn a little bit more about your community and about this new chapter. So happy to be here to listen.
Thank you for being here. So some people don't have names. Laura, you want to go next? Laura Russell.
And you are muted, Laura. So you might need to look for the little microphone to unmute, because if you're talking, we can't hear you.
We can come back to Laura. Laura, you are muted. You're showing muted. Push the icon. So I don't have names on here. Somebody's from an iPhone SE?
That's me, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I just noticed that it should say Jen Connolly's iPhone.
Okay. Oh, so you're a Jen as well. Okay.
Yeah. No, Jennifer Connolly.
Okay.
So my name's Jen. My daughter has FSHD. She's 12 and she was diagnosed when she was 7. We live in New Jersey. We've seen pretty much every doctor on the East Coast that we can get access to. So we've probably been a lot of the same places as other people. And we're just really I'm just joining to, anything I can do to help, her get some sort of a treatment. She is doing okay, but, well, I wouldn't say she's doing okay. I mean, she can no longer really do the stairs. She has an elevator pass at school. She's still walking, but, every month to 6 months, I would say she loses something.
Okay. Thank you. John? John, would you like to say hello? You're muted as well.
Something came in the chat.
You can see the chat, Allie, from
Yeah, so she says
Laura.
her microphone isn't working. I'm Laura and I'm with Advent Health Neuromuscular Outreach Program and Clinic, here to learn more to assist our parents and patients in our neuromuscular clinic in Orlando. Thank you for being here.
Awesome.
John, would you like to introduce yourself? How about Jesse?
Hello. I don't know if anybody can see me. I'm trying to get my camera to work. Can you see me? No, maybe?
Yeah, it looks like it's turned off as what we're seeing.
Okay. I tried to figure it out. I'm not sure how you can see me, but I'm new. My daughter literally just got diagnosed last week. So she's only 2. And I'm just here to join the club and get as many resources and try to figure out, different avenues and things for her being so young. And the only way we actually even tested for this is because I mentioned she couldn't raise her arms above her head, just to even put on clothes. And so that was the key element in our situation that kind of led us to finding out her diagnosis. So exciting, but yet scary. So I'm here to kind of, see other people and see how with younger children and what I have to look forward to and to expect and all that. So, and I'm from Indiana. I don't know if I was supposed to say that or not. So.
Okay, Jesse, thanks for joining us. We've all been in your situation, so I'm glad that you joined us. I think you found the right spot for support and answers. I think the FSHD Society is the place to go to get connected to other patients, parents, and resources. So welcome. And if you have any questions in the future, please feel free to reach out to myself or Kristen or anyone here. And that's kind of what I wanted to get into. There's one other person though, before I move on.
my colleague, Olga.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm a colleague of Jen Mcnary's at Fulcrum. Very new to Fulcrum, just here to listen and learn.
Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you all for being here. I know it's late in some areas, so thank you for taking the time to come and join our chapter. And I hope we grow as time and the word gets out and time goes on. The first thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, I have been talking to a lot of researchers. Actually, they've been answering my phone calls, taking Zoom calls with me. And the thing that they wanted me to pass on to you, there's 2 very important things that I wanted to pass on before we got into some other items, was the MOVE study. So there is a study right now that is being conducted at 12 sites. It is open to pediatrics. And I think, as far as I know, and June, you can correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first study that has been open to pediatrics. It's also open to non-ambulatory FSHD patients, which both of those I have never heard of before. And talking with, the leaders in the field, Dr. Statland, Dr. Twill, Dr. Jones, they're all very pro get your kids in this MOVE study because this will lead to a natural history study. So let me tell you a little bit about the MOVE study and then why natural history studies are so important. So the MOVE study, you just have to go once a year. Basically, they'll run your kid through a series of movements that's all standardized across the 12 centers. And then they'll record that information. You go once a year, it's a 3-year study. It's very important for pediatrics to be involved because they don't really have any natural history on pediatrics. Now, I never heard the word natural history till about 6 months ago. So let me tell you why natural history is important. And again, June, if I say something wrong, feel free to jump in. But this is my understanding of natural history. So natural history is just a recording of a rare disease without intervention. So how does this affect your life without any sort of intervention? And they use those natural history studies, which is very important for when they take it to the FDA to say, I want to start a trial on this, or actually when they're in the trial, how to measure outcomes. So if we want our children to eventually get into trials or for treatments that may be approved for adults to trickle down to the pediatrics, they need something to go on. Is this improving them? And this natural history is where it starts. Is that correct, June? Did I state that correctly?
Yes, you did. I mean, I think basically to test any drug, you need a benchmark. You need to know what would happen if it was untreated.
Right.
Because you have to show that the treatment is going to make a difference from what would happen naturally. So, without a natural history, the FDA would kind of throw up its arms like, especially for a progressive disease. It's not something where you get this and it's highly fatal and you can obviously tell if, your drug is going to save someone's life or not. We're looking for drugs that will slow down how quickly your child is losing function and so on. So they need to know what would happen if you didn't treat, in the natural state.
Right. And pediatrics, traditionally, they progress a lot quicker. They're early onset. Usually the earlier you get the onset of FSHD, usually the more severe. Not 100%, but a large percentage have a more severe outcome and a quicker trajectory. So it's important for the kids to get in there to show that trajectory and the impact on their life through this MOVE study. And the MOVE study is the only place that has a standardized physical therapy or MOVE metrics. If you go to different clinics throughout the United States, they all use different things because there's no one that's approved just for FSHD. And that's the other thing this MOVE study will do. Eventually, they will push that out to all the clinics, and then we'll have a standardized testing apparatus like they do for SMA. So I'm going to share my screen with you real quick. So,
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So that's what you said last was kind of where I was going to go, because we go to CHOP every year for them to measure her progression from the age of 7 to now she's 12. That data doesn't go anywhere or help us at all with getting into trials.
So this is my next point. I'm glad you brought that up. I talked to Dr. Statlin and I talked to some other researchers, and what he would like for us to do in this parent group is for me to reach out to parents and go, we have data from our kids.
Yeah.
Every 6 months, we take them to these clinics. Right. So my next thing was going to ask you to put the word out there and who's willing to get that information from their MDA clinic, the clinic they currently go to, gather that information. We'll send it in. The problem is getting someone to pour through that information because it's not standardized. To pour through the information, to extract the information that we need, and then that will be used to supplement the MOVE study. And I talked to Dr. Statlin. He said, yes, that's a good idea. We need that. Reach out and see if the parents are willing to send that information in. And then the next step is getting someone funding and time for someone to go through that information, because he said some of it is narrative, like they just type it in their notes, and there's not a standardized, they can run down the hall or get up from the floor and all these different things. So they'll pull that information, use it to supplement the MOVE study and get pediatrics more on the radar. So that was the next thing I was going to ask, if parents are willing to go gather that information, because I have 10 years of it myself. I have 10 years of information every 6 months from my son, and it shows his progression. very clearly, I think. And if we can gather that information, get it into a usable form and get it to someone. Now, I think Dr. Katz, and again, June, you can jump in here. Dr. Katz with the University of Rochester put in a grant to sort of do that very thing, to get that information. I don't know if that grant has been approved, but if it is, then that will, I think, will be our point of contact to get that information to her so she can extract that information, add it to the MOVE study information. And then now we have a good kind of back-looking, if you will, natural history of our children that they can use. But it has to be in usable format. And the thing about these trials is everything has to be so precise. You know, it has to be uniform in order for them to be able to use it for a trial. But if enough of it is uniform and they can get that information out of there, they said they're willing to look at it, which I think is huge, because my opinion, and my opinion alone, is that the key is with the pediatrics. They progress quicker. Their muscles are more saturated with DUX4. You know, the biomarkers and the progression is so quick. I think they can measure it more quickly if we can just these trials. If we get the, but the first step is the natural history, whether that's from all of our records or if that's from the MOVE study or a combination of both. I think the researchers would like a combination of both. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
So if we can get parents on board, get that information, get it to the right person that can extract that information, and I think, you know, we're ahead of the game. We don't have to wait 3 years. And I think that's the thing that's very frustrating to all FSHD patients, but especially to parents, because our kids progress so quickly. 2 years to our kids is a lifetime. I mean, it's a
I
lot.
don't have years. I'm telling you right now.
I agree with you. 100%. Like, we need to get on it. It needs to get done. So let me share my screen with you, and I'll show you the MOVE study, how to sign up for the MOVE study. I learned about this a couple weeks ago. I emailed the person, the one that's closest to me. It was really easy. I emailed her. She emailed me back right away. You only have to take them once a year. The closest one to me is either California, Utah, or Texas, which not, you know, none of them are super close. But I chose Utah, and if it's just once a year, I can make a trip once a year and get him in this study. So let me share with you, if I can, real quick. I have a couple things. So this is a way to get to the study. This is on the FSHD page. This is the location of all the CTRNs, the clinical trial networks that all work with FSHD. And you can join the MOVE study by clicking on this link right here, which will take you to clinicaltrials.gov. I clicked the wrong.
Oh, sorry. It's another step. You have to read the
Right here.
article.
Okay, so clinicaltrials.gov. This will tell you what they're testing. There's going to be 450 participants. Eventually, I think right now he said they're just recruiting 240. These are the outcomes they're going to measure. The walk, shoulder range, motion, trunk function. And then if you scroll all the way down, they'll give you the locations and the contact information. All these say recruiting. So what I did, I just went down to Utah. I emailed Sarah, clicked on that link, emailed her, said I'd give her some background information on my son. She emailed back. She said, we'd love to sign him up. It was that easy. Now, I haven't done the next step. I haven't done the next step to get him signed up, but she was very responsive and she sent an email right back. So I would encourage you, if you can, go to this MOVE study, get your kids signed up. I would also encourage you to talk to your local clinic, get the records from your kid, the physical therapy records, get them, and then when we say we need them, have them ready to send, or however we're going to do it. We haven't decided yet how that's going to be electronic. You need to scan it, if we're going to mail it, but we will be reaching out soon on that. Any questions on this?
You know, what you're saying, Ellen, gave me some thoughts here. One is whether the pediatric neurologists, like the one that Jennifer's seeing at CHOP, which is, if for those of you who don't know, that's Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, whether they would use these assessments, because they're designed to be used by clinicians during a regular visit. Not, you don't have to schedule 2 days somewhere to go and do a whole research study. It's meant to try to reduce the burden on patients and make it part of just your clinical care. So you might just talk to the doctor, or we can try to get the MOVE protocol, and you can give it to the doctor and say, even though you're not formally part of the study, if you use these and release the data to me, it can be, it'll be more, shareable.
Yeah, I didn't see all the locations, but I know Dr. Yum at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia has a lot of FSHD patients, and it's a children's hospital.
Yeah, well, that raises another point, which is because FSHD has historically been considered an adult muscular dystrophy. The CTRN sites are largely adult neurology centers. They do take children, they'll see children, but it's not where the children would normally first go to get care. So that's something I'm going to bring up with Dr. Statland, whether we should consider expanding CTRN to include some of the larger children's hospitals that are seeing a lot of early onset FSHD.
Misquote, but I'm pretty sure Dr. Yum said she had like 100 patients.
What? Wow.
I know it was a number much larger than what I thought that she sees that have FSHD.
100 pediatric FSHD patients?
That's amazing.
It was a lot of patients.
Yeah.
Dr. Statland told me that for a trial to be successful with pediatric patients, he said it could be as little as 25 patients. If we could get 25 kids and 25 parents to agree, then, we're on our way. He said he needs at least 25. And that's just from Dr. Statland. I'm sure everybody has a different opinion, but his opinion was 25. That's what he told me. But he said the first step is to get this natural history and to get him in this MOVE and to see if parents will send this. And I asked him specifically, can we get the metrics from this MOVE study sent to the MDA clinics? And he said eventually that would be the goal. But June, if you can make that happen sooner rather than later, that'd be great.
We'll definitely talk about it with him. And Jennifer, if you can send me Dr. Yam's contact information,
yes,
I'll be happy to follow up. This is definitely a gap in the trial network right now that pediatric hospitals are not part of it, and so that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Goyribs Hospital, Dr. Deskier is there. That's the one in New Jersey. I think she had a handful of patients that she saw that had FSHD, but it's not a clinic yet. It's not an MDA clinic. That's why we continue to go to CHOP. She's there, but they don't really have a clinic. So we go down. We drive like an hour and 40 minutes to get there.
So are there any more questions about the MOVE study and where you need to go to sign up and where the locations are at? So the other thing I wanted to show you this afternoon or this evening was, if you haven't seen this video from Dr. Statland that talks about drug development, is very informative. He does touch on pediatrics a little bit here. I would recommend everybody, this is on the FSHD Society YouTube channel, and go there and watch this. It's a very informative video. And if you have any questions or whatever, you can reach out, but please go watch this. And in fact, this FSHD Society YouTube channel has a lot of great information to try and digest all this stuff. A lot of it is very technical. but I think you can glean enough out of it that it's very useful, and it kind of explains how this whole process works. And Dr. Statlin explains it very well. And then again, I just wanted to show you, if you go on the FSHD Society page, this is, someone had a question about where all the CTR insights were at. And this page right here will show you where your nearest CTRN campus is at. So any questions about that? Anything that I went over so far?
I just want to mention that we'll do, Allie, we can coordinate a follow-up email so people don't have to scramble, to jot down URLs and so forth. We'll do a recap and send all these links and all this information to everybody. So don't feel like you have to try and grab it really quickly.
Right. Because the next thing I wanted to talk about was, well, before we move on, the other stat that I got from Dr. Hummel, he told me that right now there are 49 FSHD studies posted. If you compare that to Duchenne right now has 329 studies posted. So what we want to do is push hard for FSHD, especially pediatric FSHD, and get our numbers up and get some of our kids involved in some of these trials. Okay, so sort of switching gears here, I want to talk about what our plans are for the chapter. Lee and I have had a lot of conversations about where we want this chapter to go. Some of the things we're working on right now is a resource page. It's going to be a web-based page where parents can post all these videos from the chapter meetings, post some other information, also links and things like that, so that people can get resources for everything that they need. And there's a whole, I have a whole list of things, from, navigating the registries to insurance to IEPs and school things, just a whole gamut of things that parents can go to, wheelchair vans, things like that. They can go to, they click on a link and it'll take them to a resource. So Lee's working on that right now. We need input from the parents if there's anything that we have missed that you need on that page that will help you. We're also working on a welcome packet or something for new parents that are newly diagnosed, someplace that they can go and they can reach out and say, okay, my child has just been diagnosed. Where do I go now? Where do I turn? What's the first steps that I need? So I would love input on that, like what you need, like how we can help support you. And along with that, we want to connect parents and have a parent network where they can call into a central phone number. If I can get parents to sign up and say, yeah, I'm willing to talk to a parent who has a newly diagnosed child, and just be that support, answer some questions, know that there's other people out there that we've been through it, been there, done that sort of thing, and some support. Also, when you're newly diagnosed, but also as they progress, if they take a trajectory where they're going to need wheelchairs or anything like that, they can talk to someone who's been there and help them navigate that, and to help their kids perhaps from getting to that point. There's only so much you can do, but there is some stuff you could do. Like, I think back and there's so many things I wish I knew. My son's sitting in a wheelchair, all his joints are contracting and he's having a lot of other issues just related to being in a wheelchair that I had no idea that was coming at me. The stretching, the physical therapy, all those things that I wish I had known a year ago. I feel like I'm behind the curve, and we want to prevent any other parent from feeling like they're behind the curve on this stuff, that they can reach out to another parent and say, this is what I wish I could have done. Also, like surgeries, if someone's suggesting a surgery and somebody else has been through that, how did your child do? Did you feel it helped? Just kind of bounce some ideas off of one another. We live with these kids every day, and we know what works and what doesn't, and we can share that with one another to help our kids stay mobile and to stay as healthy as they can. And that's our main goal, to help our kids stay healthy, to keep them moving, and to get them in trials and to get them treated and to get them cured. That's what we want to do. So if you are interested in becoming a parent in that network, that if a parent has a question, they'll call a central number, it'll get dispatched to you. You can pick up the phone, you can talk to them, just listen sometimes, and if you have some advice on how to navigate this a little bit, it's all the better. But sometimes just knowing that there's other people that they're in your shoes, and it's not all, it's hard. It's hard to look in the future sometimes, but it's not all gloom and doom. There are a lot of successful kids and adults with FSHD. My son is in a wheelchair, but he's amazing. He's done so many things. And yes, he's had to shift some of his hobbies, but the way he's done that, like he was interested in music. So now, because he can't play the drums and guitar anymore, now he's interested in producing music. He can't play sports anymore, but he can race cars and fly drones and do other things. And he's just shifting and getting those ideas that, there's, and the thing I always tell my son too, there are a lot of people that are worse off than you. There's a lot of things you have going for you, and he does. And if we can just instill that in our kids to advocate for themselves and to do the things they can do, the sky's the limit, right? So just that encouragement, even though sometimes it's scary looking forward, but you don't know that your kid's going to go down that path. Everybody's different as well. But we want to keep our kids moving. We want to keep them healthy. We want to keep them engaged. And June knows there's a lot of people, like adults, that start off with early onset FSHD. Now they have like PhDs. They, navigated college and they have great careers. So yeah, we just want to hear those stories and encourage one another. We also, June, I don't know if you want me to bring this up, but SMA had a video research where they had parents and people kind of record a 3-minute video, and they did a research like how it impacted their life. If we could do that, if we could get on that and get parents to just have their kids, make a 2-3 minute video and maybe turn it to some sort of research. June mentioned this to me the other day.
I'd be happy to talk a little more about it because I can't believe it was about a year and a half ago. We had the Voice of the Patient forum where we asked people to testify before the FDA on the impact of FSHD on their lives. And there were a few younger people, but it was very predominantly like older adults. And, younger people are like text, video is their medium. They may not sit down and write like a whole narrative, text narrative about what they're going through, but they might record a video. And so, and SMA did that with young people who have SMA, and they decided to give their testimony through their own videos. And it was, it's really interesting. And, I think it's worth looking into doing something like that for FSHD. So, I think there's a little bit of a structure to it. Like we want to make sure everybody covers certain points in their video, but then it's how they tell their stories up to them. So, we can investigate that further. If I can mention another idea I've been discussing with Tina Duong, who is a research physical therapist at Stanford. And there was previously a sort of natural history of early onset FSHD, but it ran for a short time, ended, and then there hasn't been a follow-up. So, and we've been talking about that. And he said, well, Allie, you raised this excellent point that parents have medical records that go back years sometimes. And so rather than start zero today, what if we can gather that information that already exists? The question is, what does it look like? Is it in a way that, that apples can be compared to apples, or, so is it possible to extract comparable data across many, lots of parents' collections of their kids' records? We could, sort of turn back the clock in a way if we could do that. So we were thinking about going on kind of a fact-finding mission. So one of the ideas that came up is that if if your child has had an individualized education plan or an IEP, and most kids, if they have any degree of impairment from having FSHD, they probably have an IEP. As part of the IEP, they go through an annual assessment. And there's some of the tools that are used for those assessments that are standardized. There's something called a Peabody scale. There's a Bailey scale. Jen, you may be familiar with some of these. I was just looking a little bit. It seems to be like for younger kids, like 5 and younger. I'm sure there's something for older, going up through the grades. So what I was thinking we could do is send out a survey. We have to figure out what those instruments are, create a survey. Did your child have these or any of these, and for how long, how many years? If we had that kind of information, I could go back and, Tina Duong and I can think about, wow, looks like, we had 200 parents respond, and we could collect 10 years worth of data based on the Bailey scale or the Peabody scale or something like that. That would be interesting. That's a standardized measure, and nobody's ever thought to pull it all together and analyze it. So that's kind of another idea that we're working on.
All right, thanks. No, I don't know that Sam ever went through those with his IEP. I've never seen them on there.
I've never seen them either. She just started getting physical therapy at school, like literally this year, even though she's had IEPs since she was 2.
Right. And Sam had physical therapy at school for a while, but then they just said, we'll monitor it, but you're going off campus to get the physical therapy and OT, and nothing like that's in his IEP at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I would say while my son does not have FSHD, he is autistic. And so we go through IEPs every year as well. And there are many of those standardized tests that are optional. So my experience is that they don't always offer to take them, but parents can request them at any time. It sort of depends on your IEP team and the district. So I think some of it might be if there are standardized tests that could be in the repertoire that would be helpful, we might have to then educate parents to say, ask for this as a part of your assessment,
I think, I think they do it during the MET when they determine if whether or not they meet the criteria. They may do it once, and then once they meet it for.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's the
and then they don't do it
initial
annually list, like you said, like you ask for it, but
every 3 years they do like the big 3-year review. I only have that top of mind because Wilson's is this year. And that was a big discussion, was, are there additional tests or specific tests you want to have taken? And so that's it. But a lot of parents don't know that that's an option, or if they're getting a lot of their PT and OT and things out of school, they don't necessarily. But that doesn't mean we couldn't use some of those standardized tests as a model, whether we have them through the school district or not. There could be something to be learned from those.
The other possibility is through the visit. So if your child is going to see a neurologist, going to the MDA clinic or something once a year, we could ask if, what sort of tests do they use? They probably do some sort of like muscle strength, manual muscle test, etc. And although it isn't strictly standardized, like the way it is in the CTRN, where the physical therapists have to all like train together and then they compare how they do it, so everybody does it the same way. It's not quite that standardized, but it still is a standardized instrument. So again, if there's something that's like, oh yeah, any clinical pediatric neurologist would use this and this and this, that might be another way we could approach it. So I have some homework to do here. Like I could talk to a few pediatric neurologists who see FSHD patients and see what it is that they use, and kind of, so that's something we could do. Actually, Olga, Dr. Middleman, do you know whether in the pediatric neurology setting that there would be like a standardized assessment or relatively, set of?
So, June, thank you for asking. Again, FSHD was not the area of my previous experience, but it was Duchenne.
Mm-hmm.
And we did try to do something like this. We did chart reviews in going back, so retrospective studies, trying to gather data going up to 3, maybe 5 years back. And what we found, and these were, in some of the top Duchenne care centers, is that there was a lot of variability in what was collected in clinic and how often patients came in and what was done. And I think it's worthwhile asking parents, to go back to the clinic and ask, or take a look at the records themselves and see what is being gathered. I think it's not just important to understand what is being gathered, but how often. Because what we found is that sometimes certain measures are taken sporadically. So let's say over the course of 3 or 5 years, only twice. That's not enough to analyze the data, to do a good analysis. So the frequency is also important, but unfortunately, we found a lot of variability. So there are challenges in doing a study like this. It doesn't mean that there's not valuable data there, but having it in hand, seeing what's there, trying to do an analysis, all worthwhile, but just to be prepared that clinics generally do not have this uniformity that a study like that would have.
Yeah.
But
So-
I'm sorry, the question, because I just looked at the site centers, and even though we primarily go to CHOP, we have been to Kennedy Krieger twice. So a visit 2 years in a row, and we went to Rochester the year prior to that. So I'm one of those parents that goes to CHOP every year, but I also visit another hospital on the East Coast every year to see if a different doctor has a different opinion or different advice or whatever I can accomplish by doing that. So knowing that I've been to Rochester with her, she's gone through all of these tests at Rochester about 3 years ago. And then the 2 years following that, we went to Kennedy Krieger in Baltimore and she saw Dr. Wagner. I would assume that her records at Kennedy Krieger for those 2 visits, a year apart each, have all this testing in it.
Yeah, and I think how we can manage this, I think most parents take their kids at least every 6 months. And if we can just get those parents to say, yeah, we've gone religiously every 6 months, right?
Yeah.
And I know that there are a lot of parents out there that have. And like you, I've taken my child to Rochester before, and the tests that they did at Rochester weren't all that different than what they did here in Arizona. They're all pretty much the same thing as far as pulling and pushing and getting up off the floor and going down. They're all fairly standardized. I think the problem is going to be is extracting that information from the notes, but I don't know why the MOVE study can't push that information out to these clinics sooner rather than later so that we get standardized sooner rather than later. If this is what this is going to be the FSHD standard, why can't they push those out to the MDA clinics? And like she said, like Jen said, get some of that historical information back out. I think it's just going to take time. Right. It's just going to take time and effort to get extracting that information and finding the parents that will give the information, getting the word out that, hey, go get your child's records and get that information to whoever so that they can extract information. I think, I could be wrong, but I think you'll find that there's a lot of information there. I think most people take their kid every 6 months. The majority of us do.
I just wanted to jump in really fast just because as a new parent with a diagnosis with her, it's my 3rd child, but you guys are talking about the different hospitals. That's something that I think, Allie, would be super helpful for a new parent that has, a diagnosed child, is to find people in the same state that could help them navigate through different doctors within their state, and that maybe have already seen doctors. I'm so sorry, I forgot your name, the iPhone lady.
Jennifer.
Okay, Jennifer. And so like Jennifer said, she's already seen this doctor. It was the same one as the other one. I feel like that would be super good information for another new mom that maybe doesn't really want to spend the extra time to go to that location just to have the same results as if she would have just stayed where she was, if that makes sense. Just a little new mom.
Jessie, where are you located?
I'm in Indiana and currently in Logansport, but moving back into Fort Wayne. So we've been kind of moving all over the place because of COVID. So we originally went to Riley's Children's Hospital, which I'm sure some of you guys maybe have heard of. It's one of the biggest hospitals in Indiana for children, as well as the Peyton Manning, I believe. But she's mostly just been to the Riley we have another appointment for her on the 14th to go over everything. So we don't have, I'm not sure much options, I guess, for Indiana.
I've heard of a good place. I think it's the University of Indiana. I imagine they're like in Indianapolis, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, IU is also intertwined with the Riley Hospital. They're like connected, so that would make sense.
But a place that, if you're willing to go a little further, Columbus, Ohio, is a site for the Clinical Trial Research Network, and they have nationwide children's hospital there. So it's a leading center for muscular dystrophy research.
Okay.
And, Dr. Scott Harper's there. They have been pioneers in, we're not quite at gene therapies yet for FSHD, but they have pioneered gene therapies for Duchenne and SMA. And so that would be my recommendation, is to maybe connect with them.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Jessie, I don't know if you can see the chat. I happen to have a very good friend with a young boy with Duchenne who runs a very specific foundation in Indiana, only for children in Indiana living with rare conditions. And she is an amazing advocate in the state if you should ever need help with state resources. And they do really fun parties and things like that. Little boy is Jordan. He's adorable and he has Duchenne. For reference, for those that don't know about me, I have sons with Duchenne, so I connected with the muscular dystrophy community. But check out the Best Day Ever Foundation. And if you can't see it in the chat, Jessie, maybe Allie can send you the link, because they do some really great parent activities and groups and things like that, not disease focused. So they're not going to help with that, but they could help with waivers and things like that you might need. Yes. So Laura is an amazing advocate mom that you might want to connect with in Indiana.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. But see, this is the perfect example of, I feel like Allie it'd be so important for us to find some kind of avenue for new parents to connect with other parents or doctors in the same state. Really, I feel like that's the only thing I couldn't find when I first had heard of her getting the diagnosis, is that I wanted to reach out to another mom or another parent, or, and I signed up to, the Facebook page. I introduced myself and a little bit of my daughter's, history, just a little, short thing. But I feel like, that's one thing I was missing, is I wanted someone close to home in a way to help me navigate through this new journey, that we're going through. So,
Well, that's something we can put on the resource page, and I think June can help us with that. Kind of get connections and doctors, and certainly if there's a CTRN in each state, maybe a state by state, like these are the doctors, these are the kind of the resources, and if somebody can jump in and tag tag, onto that and say, yeah, and I also just like my cat, sorry, just like you did, and say, yeah, and then here's this other resource there. So yeah, that's something we can definitely add to the resource page once we get it up and running. So I wanted to try and sort of we're going to have this meeting monthly. I would like parents to put the word out to say join, to come, it's worthwhile just to connect with other parents, to learn things. And I just wanted to set like a couple of the first meetings of the next year, sort of topics of things that you would like to learn about. I have a whole list of things, but I don't know what order and what you would like to find out about first. So Jesse, is there anything, as a newly diagnosed parent, that's something very important that you can think of now that you would like to know, or that you would like to get educated on or discuss?
I'm excited to actually find, answers for her, because she's been literally tested for everything, literally hours after she had been born. So this is something that like we've been waiting 2 years to finally get. So knowing that it's going to possibly get worse for her, is obviously super terrifying for a mother. So you always want to, connect with other moms that have been in that same situation, that could kind of help ease your mind and help you look forward, but yet be prepared for those things that they might not be able to do next. So then, we can stay strong for our children. And I think that's something that I want to do, is make sure that I'm mentally, physically, emotionally prepared for the rest of her journey in life. And I feel like moms are usually, moms and dads, have already done this. I feel like could really help me right now, and other people like my husband, who is still, trying to adjust to, all this going on and working. And so we're, just avenues of being able to reach out and to have, information at the hand, which, just this seminar here really has helped me out a lot, to be able to even just find those different cities that we could do the resources. Like Allie opened up her screen to, that alone is super helpful. So just simple things like that, even just every month going in and doing something different that you might not have thought of before, that you think a new mom or dad might not have, if that makes sense.
Right. And it's a lot to digest, and you don't have to digest it all at once. It's a lot to take in. So I hope you join us every month and you learn more. And if you have more questions, we're always here. Have you registered your child with Rochester, the registry, the National Registry?
No, I didn't know about that.
So I just put the link in the chat. There's a National Registry. So please get her registered in that. They'll send you something annually to update, and it's pretty, it's not super specific, but now are they still walking? Are you starting to use AFOs? Are they in a chair? And it kind of tracks it. And it is the largest registry for FSHD, and we need pediatrics in that as well. So I put the link in the chat. If you can see it, I would encourage you to go there right away and get them registered in that. That's sort of the first step. And then if there's any sort of clinical trials, it all sort of feeds through there. And at 2, I don't know. I don't know that there's an age limit for the MOVE study, but I know it includes pediatrics. But, I would encourage you to do it.
I think they'll do what they can. I think one of the challenges right now with MOVE is some of the assessments are not designed for children. So, in fact, I'll be discussing this with Dr. Statland on Thursday and Tina Duong has also been involved with that, to make sure they make some adaptations so children can.
And we're
complete
planning
all
on
that
bringing
stuff.
in, doctors, researchers, things like that to
Mhm.
discuss, but I always want to leave a time
Yeah.
for the parents to just ask questions and to give our own perspective on things that,
Yeah.
this worked for my child and this is what I'm going through and this is how I navigated it.
Mhm.
So Jen, what are your hot topics that you would like to see in the upcoming meetings?
From me?
Yes.
Oh, because there's another Jen on the call.
Okay, sorry.
Well, I just thought of something when you mentioned the registry, the national registry. They need to make that computerized. I mean,
We have we funded
it's
them
so
to
crazy.
do that.
It's like a 50-page document. You're filling it out with a pen. I mean, I can't. It needs to be like it should be something where you click. You fill it in online
Right.
or something. I think you'd have a lot more participation if it was emailed to you and you could update your data.
Believe me, go ahead. That's coming. We funded them to create a digital portal.
Yeah.
It's all ready, but they tweak some language, and every time they do that, it has to go through the institutional review board, and they're just asleep. I don't know what's going on. And
the MOVE study, other things that are on my mind are just like, I went through a process of like, I went on the NIH and I printed out when this first happened in our lives, every article I could find on FSHD. And I feel like there are studies, not this MOVE study, obviously, but there are family studies over the course of the last 50 years or whatever that data can be drawn from as well. I'm just like, there was a couple of ones about families, generational families. They followed the whole family. So like, can any of that data come into play? It's just on my mind right now as we're talking about this. But the other thing that I would like to talk about is like supplements or types of physical therapy that you think are for other parents, if more parents join, they think are helping, because I have found that some doctors will tell you, yes, give them the coenzyme Q10, and yes, do the antioxidant. There's an antioxidant study in France from, I think it was from the 70s. It's so old, that we actually have been following since she was diagnosed. But it took a while for a doctor to even agree with me that it was worthwhile trying. I mean, if there's no treatment, and there's a study from 1970 something saying that taking vitamin E and selenium helps, should I be doing that? And, if someone is doing it, does it help?
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot out there, and I've tried all that stuff as well. And I just saw a study on living with FSHD about creatine. I put my son on creatine a few years ago and cycled him on and off. And I spoke to his doctor about that, and we tried it, and he did it, for a while. It didn't seem, I don't know, it didn't seem to make a marked difference. It's hard to measure whether or not it slows progression, because you never know when the next thing's coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, supplements are a huge thing. And if you're on that Facebook page, there's always some miracle, something that's coming out that you should be taking. And yeah, you never know. I know what you're saying.
I feel like maybe, I feel like most doctors are going to tell you they can't, that's not a treatment, right? Because unless it's not part of the protocol, right?
Right.
So you never can really get a good answer about what is helpful and what isn't.
So Jen, could we get Jamshed you think he would weigh in on any kind of supplements, or is that sort of out of his?
Yeah, I don't think he's followed that literature very closely. Yeah. I'm trying to think of who might have. Let me think about it. And there was a clinical trial in France about
that's the one
5 or 6 years ago. And I think the effects were fairly modest, but anecdotally, like individual parents, I know one parent who thinks it really made a difference for her child, but it's really hard to say. I think, I would love to get some guidance on what's safe. Like there's some good guidelines around creatine doses or CoQ10 and, what to get and what, to avoid harm, but still, even if there's no proven benefit, the potential benefit might be there. I don't. Jen Mcnary, I'm sure this is a big topic in the Duchenne community too. Do you know anyone who's like who's both scientific but able to kind of, just have some,
We've not reached. First of all, I have to say, Allie, is Sam live on Facebook Live right now?
He is.
Because he's streaming on my phone.
He was in.
And I just realized he's on the other side of your door.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is. And so the other thing that I wanted to mention, he was interviewed by the FSHD Society radio. The other thing I wanted to mention
he's live
is,
right now. Yeah.
My son is willing to speak to younger kids, and he's really good with that. Like if you have a younger child that wants to talk to someone who's kind of been through it, he's very open to talking to them and just kind of saying, yeah, it's a struggle, but this is kind of how I've navigated it. And so if you ever want any of your kids to talk with him, he's very open to that. Anyway, he's on FSHD radio.
And sorry, June, I was not deferring. I was just laughing because I'm listening to him speak. That we don't have the answer to that in Duchenne, and it's been an ongoing conversation in the community. And the real answer is that these things are not regulated. There are companies like Santhera that are bringing forth a drug called idebenone that folks in the Duchenne community have used over the counter for years and ordered from who knows where, and we don't know if it's safe. And so a company really has to bring it, run a trial in it, and have it approved for the use in a certain disease state before any medical professional should be making a recommendation. And so I think that's what you'll find and see is that parents do all kinds of things. I'm not going to judge. My kids were on creatine for a while. Things like that, people do that. But I think that what you'll find in the community is that you won't see a medical professional that without a clinical trial. If there are enough people with anecdotal evidence, you could talk to companies. I know that Parent Project MD ran some clinical trials on it was Cure Duchenne, ran some clinical trials on supplements at one point and at least checked the formulations to make sure what people were getting were the exact same doses, at least made sure it was safe. So sometimes organizations do that, but it's an age-old question, and that's why some companies are actually bringing forward nutraceuticals, they call it. So, so that's, we've never reached a conclusion there, and people are sort of doing what they want. And with that, I actually have to run. Speaking of children, I have a household.
Yeah, we probably need to wrap up. So before we wrap up, first I just want to say thank you everyone for attending. Have happy holidays. We'll see you on the 3rd Tuesday next month. I'll try and get a guest speaker. I'll work with June and Lee and we'll find someone. Please, if you would like to sign up to be in the network of parents that other parents can talk to, please reach out to me. I'm at Early-Onset Chapter at FSHD Society. If you're willing, because I need a lot of parents that's willing to go get their child's physical therapy records or look at their IEPs and see if that information's in there and start gathering this information and getting that train going. I know that the doctors are, they're very receptive to it. The researchers are very receptive. None of them that I've spoken to said, no, that's a bad idea. They're like, yes, we need to get pediatrics and early onset in this conversation, and I'm willing to do it. So we need the parents to help them help us. So
I think what would be helpful is to have a kind of a little bit of a structured questionnaire to send to parents so that they know kind of what to look for.
Yeah.
If you're going to look, here's some keywords to kind of scan for, or yes, no, and that'll give us a sense of whether it's worth going to the next step to actually do a systematic kind of collection of this data. And yeah.
Well, then look for a survey. We'll get one put together and we'll send it out. Please participate. Please get the word out to other parents to please join us. There's a lot of good information here, and not only can we glean from each other, but just information from the FSHD Society and other experts that we have on, and I think it's super valuable. And I wish that I would have had a group like this when Sam was first diagnosed. I looked high and low. There's only one other pediatric patient that I know in the whole state of Arizona that, she's a couple of years older than Sam, and I tried forever to get in contact with her, and I didn't until recently when she turned 18. So, I encourage parents to come and share and support each other. We're out there. There's a lot of us.
That's
and
great.
We have a voice, and we have a powerful voice, and we need to get that voice, collective voice, and push to get these things through for our kids.
Okay.
All right. Well, you guys have a great holiday, and I'll get an agenda out for the next meeting. And thank you so much.